Dear chess fans, in today's video we are going to have a look at a very special game played by the one and only Grandmaster Hans Niemann. He is playing against Maxime Vachier Lagrave, the famous French Grandmaster, in the Speed Chess Championships on chess.com. This is a very exciting online event with world's best players participating. And the exciting part of this event is that these top guys, they are playing a lot of games against each other in different segments. So the first segment, it's the 5-minute pool. Then the players move on to play a number of games in the 3 minutes pool, and they conclude their match in the bullet portion with only 1 minute each. So it's a very exciting time control with different games. And we are going to have a look at a game of Maxime Vachier Lagrave, the Frenchman, the true blitz specialist. He became in 2021 the World Blitz chess champion. And MVL, as we call him, is playing against Hans Niemann in this 5-minute game. It's the very first game of the match. And it's a short game, but very instructive. That's why I would like to point out the highlights of this game, as I believe you can definitely learn something from it. And Hans Niemann fans, good news for you all. It's today, the 1st of August. It's gonna be a very exciting month with Hans being in action in quite a number of events, as I think he's going to play in the World Rapid Blitz and Team Championships, and also in a match in the Netherlands. He's playing against Anish Giri in about a week time from now. But that's for later. What I want to say is that if you want to follow Hans Niemann, make sure to subscribe to the channel, as I will definitely follow his games. Of course, I follow the other top guys as well. But Hans is a very, very special figure in the chess world. So we would like to keep following his progress. Well, let's have a look. MVL with white against Hans Niemann. The opening is well known to all of us. It's the e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5 opening. We call it the Spanish game, or the Ruy Lopez. Not a surprise at all, because both players have been playing it. Hans, especially from the black side, of course. a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castling kingside, bishop e7. I quickly go through the first couple of moves, as this has been seen hundreds, thousands, millions of times, including in games of both players. So b5, bishop b3, castling kingside, and now a4. This is what we call the anti-martial, discouraging black from breaking free very quickly with the move d7, d5. White is threatening to take on b5, obviously, and then the rook on a8 is hanging, so it's not really a good idea to recapture. So therefore, black play the move bishop b7. It's one of the many ways of playing this setup with black. Here the rook is well defended. Now the pawn goes to d3. This is considered to be a good strategy. Very often in the Spanish game you also have plans to go c3 and d4 to occupy the center. But then, especially in those cases, the bishop on b7 is able to exert a lot of pressure against the pawn on e4. So therefore, pawn on d3, it's all pretty standard. Black goes for the move d6. And last year, Hans had a number of games against different moves here. Against the move c3, against bishop d2. This time, MVL goes for the move knight bd2. Also a typical move in the Ruy Lopez. After knight a5, black wants to get rid of this powerful bishop on the light squares. Therefore, the bishop goes back to a2. And black thematically follows up with the move c5. Grabbing space is a typical plan. After placing the knight at the side of the board, you're trying to get more influence in the center on the queen side with this pawn formation. Here, white continues with the move knight f1. Also very thematical, so the knight can come over to e3 or g3. And now Hans played the move b4. Interesting. In other games, even black players had considered here to take on a4, just take the pawn. But okay, it's not such a great pawn. So Hans has a different plan in mind. He keeps the structure intact. And who knows, maybe this pawn on b4 can become quite useful later on. Well, MVL played the move bishop d2. To be honest, I was not really able to understand the purpose of this move. Sometimes you would like to go for something like c3 and try to put pressure against the pawn on b4. But if you want to do that, you may have considered playing c3 immediately. What happens now is super interesting, as the bishop on b7, as I said already earlier, it's exerting pressure, but not too much because of the pawn on d3. So here, black comes up with a thematical plan of rerouting the bishop via c8 and after knight e3 to e6. So the point is to neutralize the potential power of that bishop on a2. It's usually a very good piece on a2 to target the king side, but now, okay, you're neutralizing that pressure, and I think this is a very standard way of playing. It's justified to go for the slow maneuver because the position is quite close, so it's difficult for white to exploit his small lead in development. So what to do here? Well, there are various possibilities. You may always consider taking on e6, giving black these double pawns. Interesting plan. MVL went here for the move c3, so introducing that plan I mentioned already earlier, trying to get rid of that annoying pawn on b4. But here I believe it's not well timed to play this move, because look at this. Here is the move b4, b3, attacking the bishop on a2. And the pawn on b3 is fantastically supported by the knight and the bishop, so white doesn't have the chance here to take it. The bishop gotta go back to b1. But look at this bishop. What is this bishop doing here? It's looking at its own pawn still, and white will have to work hard to get that bishop back into play. After the move queen c7, white played here the move d4, grabbing space in the center. Maybe white is going to take, maybe white is going to advance the pawn, we don't know. But the most important thing white is contemplating here is to put the bishop back on d3. Why the bishop wants to go to d3? To ensure that the rook from a1 is able to move as well. Therefore, black is not going to cooperate. Black went here for the move c4, locking up the queen side. Very often in the Spanish game, one of the main ideas for black is try to open that side, to try to find a way getting a path for the major pieces to infiltrate. But here you're locking up that queen side so that the bishop on b1 is not able to move. If it moves, it will just be captured by a pawn on c4 or the pawn on b3. And if the bishop cannot move, well, then the rook on a1 is also out of play. Let's see how this pawn formation impacts white's position here. Because white tried now to play as actively as possible with the move knight f5, looking for opportunities to play on the king side. I mean, the knight itself is not really threatening anything yet. But who knows if black is going to take on f5, which was not played in the game, but he should have considered it. After pawn takes, I mean, as long as the knight is on f6, the pawn is there on f5, this bishop is unable to do something here. Because, for instance, if you take on d4 and you take back with a knight, I like here this move, d5. Look at this pawn chain. It's completely dominating the bishop on b1 and therefore also the rook on a1. And in general, if you have such situation when one or two pieces are misplaced, out of play, the general strategy, the main approach is try to shift the attention to the other side of the board. And I think black's plan should be in such case to try to conquer the open file and take it from there, try to infiltrate white's position at some point. I think this looks very promising in the game. Hans played a very calm move. He played rook a8. Everything is well protected, so it's not a bad move. White played queen e2. Rook fe8 was played. Everything is well protected. Now white decided eventually to trade off the knight for the bishop. Queen takes on e7. But how is black going to break through? This is not so simple here because white is controlling the center pretty well. If you ever going to take on d4, white can even consider taking back with the c pawn. Then you get two very nice pawns. So position is still kind of acceptable for white, strangely enough. But white got very tempted here by taking a pawn in the center. Pawn takes e5 was played. Black recaptures and now knight takes e5. Grabbing a pawn, of course, as I said, is very tempting. But it also does activate the black major pieces. Now black's pieces are placed beautifully on open files in the center. And I think that MVL underestimated Hans's next move. Because look guys, this is incredible. What's happening here? The next move by black totally comes out of the blue. Bishop g4, attacking the queen, also attacking the knight, so basically you don't have much of a choice. Knight takes g4, knight takes g4, and well, the knight is on its way to e5 to set up a blockade on the e5 square, and who knows, maybe you can later on get your knight to d3, or you can try to prepare the other knight coming in so that you get an octopus on this square. It's just one of the many ideas available. But the main point, of course, is that after queen takes g4, which was played by MVL, there is rook takes d2. Now the rook enters on the second rank. But the reason MVL goes for this line is that now he has the move e5. He's able to break free, finally, with his bishop from b1. Now, eyeing the black king, especially the pawn on h7. And just to show you what could have happened, this didn't happen in the game, but if black is greedy by regaining the pawn on b2, I believe that the move e6 is really difficult to meet for black. There are a lot of tactical ideas to open up the center, to open up the king. And for instance, if you take this pawn, this is just analysis, guys, but I want to show it to you. There's queen h5, threatening to take on h7. If you go g6, then it's boom. This bishop from b1, which was out of play for a long period of time, suddenly comes alive. If you accept the bishop sack, queen takes g6, wherever the king is going, let's say you go to h8, there is rook e3, and followed by rook h3, you're going to win a lot of material, or it will be checkmate. While after king f8, same idea, there is rook f3 coming next, black is busted. So you get an idea that, okay, this bishop may get back into play. Therefore, Hans decided to play as actively as possible himself. Played here the move queen c5 instead of grabbing the pawn on b2. He is threatening to take on f2 with mate to come. And well, what's gonna happen now? I mean, white gotta do something about that threat. Played here the move queen h4, so that you're defending the pawn, but at the same time you're also threatening to take on h7, either with the bishop or with the queen. Therefore black played the move g6, and well, here black is about just to take on e5. That should be clear. I mean, if you can regain the pawn, then things are looking great, because your pieces are centrally placed and these two pieces are still out of play. Now, it's a blitz game, mistakes are made, which explains the sudden end of this game. As here, MVL played the move queen f4. He hits the rook on d2, and probably he was expecting here black to move the rook away. Also, the queen defends the pawn on e5. But can you see here, guys, what is the killer blow for black? Black to play and win. You may pause the video and use your time also to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Hans Niemann games. The best games of Hans are covered on this channel, but there's many more to explore. So turn on the notifications as well, give this video a like, share it among your friends, and last but not least, you can support the channel also by making a PayPal donation. I really appreciate all the support. And then I'm going to show the move played by Hans Niemann. It is queen takes e5, white resigns. Why? You cannot take the queen. If you take with the rook, rook takes e5, there is rook to d1. And it's a back rank mate, because all the pawns are still blocking the king. After rook e1, it's rook takes e1 with checkmate. And other moves are also not going to help either. For instance, if you take on e5 with the queen yourself, there's rook takes e5, and now again, if you take on e5, there's rook d1 with the same back rank issue as before. Now you don't have to take twice on e5, you don't have to take the rook here, but otherwise, okay, what is white going to do? White can barely move, the pawn on b2 is going to be taken as well. It's completely hopeless for white. So therefore, after queen takes e5, Hans won this game. It was a very important game. Let me know in the comments what you think of this game actually, but the reason why it was so important is that Hans managed to win this mini match and advances to the quarterfinals, in which he is going to play against Wesley So. And well, the winner of that match qualifies for the exciting final in Paris later in September. So that's something we are looking forward to see. And there is a potential chance that Hans will play in that finals against Magnus Carlsen. So stay tuned for more updates on that. By the way, the final thing I forgot to say, and that's quite relevant of course, is that queen takes d2 also doesn't work because of queen takes e1 and rook takes e1. It's the same back rank issue as before, but you see what happens if your bishop and rook are out of play. The other side of the board is vulnerable as well. Once again, let me know in the comments, guys, what do you think of this game? Thanks for your support and see you soon again. Bye bye.